Alright, here we are for Autodesk Fusion 360, and we're looking at assemblies using VEX EDGE parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project. So here are the EDGE parts where you imported them, and then we have the VEX turning point projects right here. So if I come here, I am actually going to save this untitled within this turning point. I'm going to call this drivetrain. So what you'll notice is now I have drivetrain. It's going to be located right here. It's saying 6:22 p.m. So within this drivetrain, I'm going to be able to go back to my VEX EDGE parts project and open this, and then I'm going to be able to find all my structure. You're going to notice that you're going to see custom parts within this EDGE parts, and that's sub-assemblies. So if you create sub-assemblies, as far as you've got a omni wheel sub-assembly, you got motor wheel, but this is the drawing of it, and you can also create bolts, bolt and nut, or flat bearing, bolt, nut, or pop rivets already put together. So that makes it speeds up everything if you go ahead and create a set of these, and then you space the nut based on the structure piece that you're putting together. So it'll save you time. So let's go ahead and go to structure, and we're going to find aluminum. So we want a 1 by 2 by 1 aluminum, right? So let's see if we can find it faster. Yes, we can. So we go ahead and look at one of these pieces of aluminum and just pull this into the design. You're going to notice a couple things happen. First, you're going to notice that once we place it, it now has an origin, so you can turn this on and off. That's the light bulb. And we're also going to see that there's bodies here. You can turn these on and off, right? So this particular C channel, it doesn't seem to be linked to the original one. So if we start working in this and then we see this link, we're going to have to unlink it to make modifications. So let's say I'm just working with this piece of 35 by, which is, I believe, 17 1/4 or 17 1/2. So if I don't know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my keyboard. I'm going to press I. Then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to zoom in and out, and I am going to find the length of this piece of 1 by 2, and it tells me that it's 17.50, so 17 1/2 or 17 500 thou, right? And anyway, it's also telling us the distance from this bend across, and now that wouldn't give you the total distance because we'd actually have to come from this plane and this plane. So when we press I, we can do this again, here to here, and it'll actually give you that length located right there. 2 selections, it's exactly 1 inch, right, in theory. So here we go. There's a couple different things. We could ground this particular component, and when we're looking at this box is going to tell us a couple things. It's going to tell us if it is a body, a component, or an assembly. Okay, so with the part already, I can select it from here. I can select it by double clicking the whole part, but the first thing I want to do is I want to hit M, and then I'm going to select this part. So it's best if you find a place to move from that's on a good plane, and bring this over here. You see that I can move this up and down, so that's moving in space. So if you hold shift, you can go ahead and orbit around and see that it's moving off of this grid. You don't have to have that grid on. I just prefer to use that. It gives me a good reference. But this piece could be your reference. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that and just leave it where it is. Now when I zoom into this piece, you're going to notice that there is not a point of reference within the holes, right? And we can actually make those, but we can use these outward parts to actually make alignments pretty well. So let's go ahead and make a joint connection, right? So we want to use the joint function, which is J, right? And then there's a as build. So if you have things put together, you can select multiple and just do an as build joint. But if we bring another piece of this aluminum in, we could have brought it from here, or we could have made a copy of this piece. Okay, so right now it is free for me to move. Okay, so it's in the move copy, right? And if you create a copy, you'll notice that you have to make sure to click this particular piece, because it'll make a copy off of a move, which is pretty cool. Now, you translate, rotating, point to point, and then point to position. These are all different functions, right? So notice that it's on component. It's not a body, it's not faces. Now I'm moving a whole component, which is indicated by this cube right here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to align this point right here with this one. Okay, so I'm going to create a joint. And you notice, because I say joint, it says components 1 select, component 2 select, and then you can flip. And then the top right now is rigid. So I'm going to select this. Okay, and you're noticing that it's bringing up an origin. So I want this particular point right here. So it's selected. Now it went to the component 2. So I'm going to bring it over here. And one thing that you can do when you're on a plane, if you go ahead and hit Control, it will lock those in. Then you can select the second one. So you'll notice right then that it brought those 2 points together. Okay. Now, can I move those? Yes. Can I flip them? Yes. So as I flipped it up, you're going to notice that it perfectly aligned those two and it created a joint. Now that joint is a rigid type, right? So if I animate that, it's rigid. There is a slider type, and you'll see that I can set the movement, but it's sliding past each other, right? So it's on the Z axis, which is the up and down, and then you could show it in the Y. I can change this to a revolute on my Z axis. So there's some cool things to do. But one of the main things is when you have the pop-up windows that you pay very close attention to what's going on inside. So there's those two. I didn't create that joint, but I'm going to just go back through it. So I have 2 different components that are indicated by the cubes. And what I want to do is I want to press J on the keyboard. And I need to select a component 1, which I'm going to select this one. And then I'm going to rotate. So I'm holding Shift and the scroll wheel on the mouse. And I'm actually going to line one of these up. So I'm going to hold Control. And I'm going to select that one. Okay, so I have it selected. And then I'm going to move over here. And I'm going to select my second one. So I'm going to get on this face, and I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to click that one, and it's going to move right over there. And now you're going to notice that it is lined up once again in a position, and they're stacked on top of each other. So we're going to flip that, and then we can move this as needed. We can animate that, and you notice that it is a rigid. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to click OK, and now I have a rigid joint right there, which is indicated right there. What's cool is if you click on this, you can actually edit the type of joint. So if you go back, you can click Edit Joint, and you can create that revolute slider cylindrical pin slot. So it's always good to be able to do that. So that's assembly. So as you're building your drivetrain chassis, you'll be able to drop in parts. Then eventually you can select the parts, select all your parts, and create a selection set. So then you'll be able to house them within selection sets. Okay. So thank you again, and that's using the joint function within the drivetrain for the Edge drivetrain, and you're going to be doing assemblies. So have fun and make sure you pay attention to